27. Let's read some more between the lines. We'll see what they think about your IQ and your own thinking capability. Thought is a primitive superstition. Reason is an irrational idea. The childish notion that we are able to think has been mankind's costliest error. What you think is an illusion. I'll agree to that. That gray matter you're so proud of is like a mirror in an amusement park which transmits to you nothing but distorted signals from a reality forever beyond your grasp. They're bragging that you'll never be able to comprehend what's really going on. Again, the page number, documentation, page 318. The page number may vary if you have a hardback or a paperback edition. Let's read on, because at the end of this book, the world begins to crumble. It seems like people are begging for something to happen to rescue them. And why? Because the economy of the United States is crumbling at the pillars. And what happens in the end of the book? The President of the United States has to invoke presidential executive orders. I said the book was written in 1957. We are now in the last chapters of the book. Maybe you are unaware about executive orders, about the continuity of government. You need to do some homework before it's too late. Now let's read the quote. What will they eat while they're waiting? There's got to be some victims in times of national emergency. I suppose there will be some victims in times of national emergency. It can't be helped in times of crisis. Economic service to the nation is just as much of a duty as military service. Please note, anyone who abandons it should be regarded as a deserter. It's just a fictional book. Don't be alarmed. She states, I have recommended that we introduce the death penalty for those men. Let's read on in Atlas Shrugged. Twice within this quote, if you will read ahead, you will notice a peculiar term mentioned in our Bible. I know that this stands for something. I do too. The dollar sign, for a great deal. It stands stamped where? On the forehead of a man? Stamped on the forehead of a man like Hank Reardon as a mark of damnation? Incidentally, do you know where that sign came from? It stands for the initials of the United States. Do you know that the United States is the only country in history that has ever used its own monogram as a symbol of depravity? Ask yourself why. Ask yourself how long a country that did that could hope to exist, and whose moral standards have destroyed it. Read on, because again, it mentions this curious statement, a mark in the forehead. At the bottom it says we choose to wear the sign of the dollar on our foreheads proudly as our badge of nobility. I don't think I'm going to wear anything on my forehead. The production of airplanes had been declared temporarily suspended. Air travel for private purposes had been forbidden. You're free to travel today. Don't take that freedom for granted. An enlightened citizenry should abandon the superstitious worship of logic and the outmoded reliance on reason, just as laymen leave medicine to doctors and electronics to engineers. So people who are not qualified to think should have all the thinking. Where are they going to leave the thinking to? To the experts. I'm sorry. I enjoy doing my own thinking, and I don't like the experts to tell me what to think. I seem to have a problem of thinking on my own. Notice the quote was from page 863. Again, from Atlas Shrugged. It's a great responsibility, said Eugene Lawson, to hold the decision of life or death over thousands of people, and here's that famous Illuminati word, that appears on almost every page in her fictional novel, to sacrifice thousands of people, decision of life or death over thousands of people, to sacrifice them when necessary. But we must have the courage to do it. Give us leeway to save the eastern states. That's all that's left of the country and of the whole world. The time of national peril, it is your duty to serve, to suffer, and work for the salvation of the country. And notice the repetition. You have to make certain sacrifices to the public welfare. Again, from Atlas Shrugged. If you haven't caught on yet, the plans are between the lines. In this quote, they're talking about taking extreme measures because it's a national emergency. You can't have lawlessness in the streets, but what's this about even putting critics or dissenters to death? But don't worry, it's only a release. That's what fiction is created for. On page 1024 we read, for instance, in view of the desperate shortage of food, it has been suggested that it might become necessary to issue a directive, a presidential directive, ordering that every third of all the children under the age of 10 and of all adults over the age of 60 be put to death to secure the survival of the rest. I don't find that interesting even in a fictional novel. The plans were set in motion in 1957 in this code book. 40 years have gone by. You may obtain a copy at your local library. Don't go out and purchase one. Read between the lines, and you can find out what they're planning. At the end of the book, a man named John Galt has gathered together the brains of the world. They've gone to a retreat to let the world crumble around them. They know that the world will beg them to return and rebuild society. And they go to a retreat in the mountains of Colorado. But no one can find them because they have inventors and they know how to project pictures so that anyone who even flies close to their retreat will only see a picture projected into the sky. I have a friend who got a call in Wyoming, the state above Colorado. They said, Dave, you better get in your plane. You better drive down and check out this mountain in Colorado. There's some strange goings-on on the top of this mountain. So he jumped into his plane. He flew down to Colorado. He noted there were tractor-trailer trucks circling and winding around the little road heading up this mountain. He kept the plane just circling the mountain and watching. He'd go around the mountain and come back. The tractor-trailer trucks were driving up the mountain, and all of a sudden they drove right into the mountain, right through the rocks and the trees and the ground, and he found out it was a holographic projection protecting the tractor-trailer trucks driving into the top of this mountain. Yes, there were some good patriot generals in the United States that heard about this. I had access to a private teleconference where a dozen of them were trying to decide whether there was any hope left, whether there's any chance to stop the New World Order. One of them made the comment, it sounds like Atlas Shrugged. By the way, their conclusion was this handful of good, godly, patriot military men, they said, we think it's too late to stop them. They have too much money and too much power. How could martial law appear in the United States? The term is now used, continuity of government. There are two or three ways. The people themselves may get to a point where they ask that something be done about lawlessness